to all of the wonderful support staff that make sure that these meetings go as smoothly as possible. Thank you, committee members, for logging in on time and for your patience. I know, Mr. Randall, you're way in a time zone where I just wouldn't be awake at this time, regardless. So I appreciate your tenacity in making sure that we're doing the things that Canadians expect us to do. So welcome to the third meeting of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to House Order of September 23rd, 2020. The proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. Just so that you're aware, the webcast will always show the person that's speaking instead of the whole room. And I understand that Mr. Zuberi is in person today. So welcome, Mr. Zuberi, to the committee room. To ensure an orderly meeting, I'd like to outline a few rules. Members and witnesses may speak in your official language of your choice. Interpretation services are available for this meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen where it says interpretation of either Floor, English, or French. For members participating in person, proceed as you usually would when the whole committee is there. Just keep in mind to take precautions with health protocols in masking. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. For those participating virtually, please click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself. I cannot stress the importance of unmuting yourself before you start speaking, because if you don't unmute yourself, we won't be able to hear you. And I know that that's something that we often forget to do, myself included. Those in the room, your microphone will be controlled as normal by the Proceedings and Verifications Officer. A reminder that all comments by members and witnesses should be addressed through the chair. When speaking, please speak slowly and clearly to allow time for interpretation. And then when you are not speaking, please make sure that you're on mute. With regards to the speaking list and the order of questions, we have canvassed all of the parties, so I know in advance who is speaking at what time. But I will do my best, and the clerk will do his best, and together we'll make sure that that everybody gets the equitable time that we've agreed to beforehand. A number of things that I just want to clarify before we get going and I introduce our witnesses that are here today. Firstly, I know in the last meeting we had talked about the supplementary estimates, and at that time I hadn't realized that it would be very short notice for the agencies that are directly involved with the supplementary estimates that they would not be able to appear. So, namely, the Canadian Human Rights Commission was not able to appear today, and we know that the minister is not able to speak to the subs where he is able to speak to the mains. So I leave it to the committee to decide if we would like to defer the supplementary estimates to a later time so that we can hear from the relevant agency before voting on them, or we can go ahead and vote on them today as a committee. So just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if for either way. If you're okay to vote on the subs today without having heard from the Canadian Human Rights Commission, give me a thumbs up. If you would like to hear from the Human Rights Commission, give me a thumbs down, please. Up. Up. Great. So I think we have consensus to vote on the subs today without having heard from the Canadian Human Rights Commission. That is wonderful. So today we are joined by the Honorable David Lametti, our Minister of Justice, and the Attorney General. We also have with us Nathalie Drouin, who is the Deputy Minister of Justice and Deputy Attorney General of Canada, Francois Daigle, who is the Associate Deputy Minister, and Bill Kroll, who's the Chief Financial Officer and Assistant Deputy Minister. With that, I will then ask our minister to please, well, first of all, welcome to the 2020 Justice Committee and the talking about main estimates. You have 7.5 minutes to speak. So please, the floor is yours, Mr. Lametti.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the invitation to speak to the committee as it studies the 2020 main estimates for the Department of Justice Canada. Thank you, and hello to everybody virtually. At some point, we do hope to do this again back at Ottawa. I would first like to acknowledge that I am joining you today from my office in the Department of Justice, which sits on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. As the chair has mentioned, I'm joined today by Nathalie Drouin, Deputy Minister, François Daigle, Associate Deputy Minister, and Bill Krall, the Chief Financial Officer and Assistant Deputy Minister. And I would be remiss if I didn't also salute the presence of my very able Parliamentary Secretary, Arif Virani. I have so much confidence in Arif that if there's a mistake that's made, it's actually his fault. So I just want you all to know that for the record.
As we deal with both a global pandemic and calls for major social changes, the Department of Justice Canada's work to promote and maintain a fair, transparent, and accessible justice system becomes even more critical. I'm proud to note that the department has shown great resilience and determination in the face of obstacles and delays during the pandemic, finding ways to work together and push ahead on key policy and legislative files. We have moved rapidly to reintroduce important legislation regarding medical assistance in dying, banning conversion therapy, and ensuring that judges hearing sexual assault matters will have the necessary training in sexual assault law and social context. We also intend to fulfill our pledge to introduce legislation this year to implement the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples.
Must already deal with barriers. Those facing low incomes, underemployment, intimate partner violence, discrimination, and other challenges have felt the full brunt of the crisis. This trauma echoes in every region of the country, particularly in remote and Indigenous communities. It is very important to me that we work to ensure that all Canadians have confidence in our justice system. This work has begun, but I acknowledge that there is much more work to do. Our government has brought forward a variety of important measures to blunt the effects of the pandemic, to address social inequalities, and to support our most vulnerable citizens. Ainsi,
As one example, I was pleased to announce recently that our government is providing funding of almost $364,000 to support 5 child advocacy centres and child and youth advocacy centres in Ontario to help ensure delivery of services during the pandemic. The centres play an essential role in this province's victim services. They provide immeasurable support and comfort for children, youth, and their families who are dealing with abuse or violence. It is no surprise that the COVID-19 pandemic has had an impact on the ability of these centres to help young victims and their families. This at a time when the centres are needed more than ever. The announced funding will provide urgently needed resources to ensure these centres can provide services that meet public health guidelines and restrictions.
Ways we are helping vulnerable Canadians in this time of social, economic, and health crisis. We are hearing ever louder calls to make our justice system better serve Indigenous, Black, racialized, LGBTQ2, and other communities, and to promote fair access to justice for all. Committee members will hear these voices and these priorities echoed within financial details of the 2020-2021 main estimates. Now the overview. The Department of Justice has a total budgetary authority of $769.02 million through the 2020-21 main estimates, an increase of $24.5 million from the previous fiscal year. This funding will go towards key priorities that help to strengthen our justice system and ensure it is fair and accessible for everyone. Allow me to highlight a couple of key areas. One is sexual harassment. One example of how we are helping to protect Canadians' rights and increase access to justice is by providing legal support and awareness on sexual harassment in the workplace. In Budget 2018, our government committed $50.4 million over 5 years towards actions to eliminate gender-based violence and harassment. The 2020-2021 main estimates include $10.58 million to help ensure that workers are able to work in an environment free from harassment and fear. Through the department's legal aid program and the Justice Partnership and Innovation Program, JPIP, we will boost legal aid and support for workers who experience sexual harassment in the workplace, and support the ongoing development of a pan-Canadian outreach program to make sure workers understand what their rights are and how they can find help. Access to a fair and equitable justice system is a core part of reconciliation and our work to build a strong, respectful relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people in our country. Budget 2019 included $10 million over 5 years to implement Call to Action 50 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to support Indigenous law initiatives across Canada. This is a vital part of building stronger Indigenous governance and healthy communities. The 2020-2021 main estimates include $2 million for Justice Canada to support the development, use, and understanding of Indigenous laws and access to justice in accordance with the unique cultures of Indigenous peoples in Canada. Je conclurai ainsi.
On this note, I will conclude my remarks. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about how we are working to make our justice system stronger, more people-centered, and more resilient for a better Canada. I'm now happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Minister Lametti. So we are now going to go to the Conservative side. Mr. Moore, you have 6 minutes for your round of questions starting now.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister, for appearing today at our committee. It's good to see you again, even if it is virtually. Minister, an issue that I've been raising and have raised with you for some time has obviously been the impact of COVID-19 has altered significantly the financial estimates for the government. And one of the issues that we've been raising is the concern with the growing backlog in the courts, both related to the COVID shutdown, but also with vacancies within the judiciary. Can the minister inform the committee how the government is going to respond to this, what conversations the minister has had with provinces over the past number of months? And I want to reference specifically Ches Crosby, the leader of the opposition in Newfoundland and Labrador, has raised concerns in his province with 4 vacancies on the bench delaying justice in that province. So I'd like to get the minister's comments on that, the delay in the justice system. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Moore, for your question. Rob, if I may, it's a great question and an important one. Throughout the pandemic, I've been in pretty much constant touch with my my provincial and territorial counterparts, we've had a number of FPT calls as a reaction to COVID. And I also have co-chaired with the Chief Justice of Canada an action committee with a number of chief magistrates across Canada to really discuss and to implement and suggest best practices in terms of how courts can react to the pandemic in terms of hearing cases and parts of the cases at a distance, but also doing so safely when it's done physically. We have, I think, done a very good job of filling court vacancies, and we continue to do so and expeditiously. And I think we're at a pretty good point. The Newfoundland and Labrador question is a particular one. We have just recomposed the Judicial Appointments Committee. And they are now evaluating files, and we should be able to move to those. To those 4 vacancies in short order. But the delay was caused by the transition in the Judicial Appointments Committee. Now that it's up and doing its work again, evaluating files, there will be a pool of candidates that can then move on to the next stage, and we hope that will be done very shortly. But you're correct to raise the issue, as was Chaz Crosby, and believe me, it was on my radar screen as well as the radar screen of our team, and I think we have now the jack up and functioning again.
Well, thank you, Minister. And I mean, I guess in my experience, the judicial advisory committees, they create a pool of eligible lawyers to be appointed to the judiciary. I know in the past there was always a pool available, so it does concern me that the Judicial Advisory Committee would have to be reconstituted in order to create a new pool, when I would suspect that there is a number of eligible people that could have been appointed already. Moving on, Minister, under the Jordan decision, as you're well aware, the court ruled that what's deemed to be a reasonable time for access to a trial. And if those charged do not receive a trial within the time prescribed in that decision, there's a risk of them having their case thrown out. And that obviously creates great concern in the COVID context. The backlog in the courts is likely to have a long-lasting impact on the operations of our courts. And I'd like your comments on how you think these delays could impact regarding the Jordan decision.
Well, thank you again. Again, it's a highly relevant and a good question, Rob, under the circumstances. The Jordan decision itself is something that we're watching closely with both with my federal and with my provincial and territorial counterparts, as well as with the administrators, and particularly chief justices of the justice system across Canada. There is a safety valve mechanism within the Jordan decision itself, because the Jordan decision itself does have an exception for exceptional circumstances, and I think by anyone's definition, these are exceptional circumstances, and we're pretty confident that judges will so rule. That being said, we are presently considering amendments to the criminal code that have been suggested by my provincial and territorial counterparts to help accelerate parts of the system. We're watching carefully if we need to intervene with a legislative solution or perhaps an intervention in front of the courts. But again, there for the time being, we don't feel that is necessary, but it is a situation that we're monitoring very closely.
Thank you, Minister. And finally,
sorry, Mr. Moore, you have 8 seconds left.
8 seconds. Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks for appearing, and we'll look forward to the next round. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moore. I have Mr. Kellaway next for 6 minutes. Please go ahead, Mr. Kellaway.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and colleagues and staff and Minister. It's great to see you here this morning and this afternoon, depending on where you're doing this Zoom. Madam Chair, in Cape Breton Council, I proudly work with 6 First Nations communities, and I'm in regular communication with the chiefs and have been throughout the pandemic. Actually, over the past 23 years, I've been working with First Nations communities. But in particular, what I've been hearing is that Indigenous communities are are happy with the support from the federal government to help contain the spread of COVID-19. This minister and many colleagues have been committed to walk the path of reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, and there's definitely been a focus on implementing commitments made in 2019, and the Indigenous communities in my riding are extremely grateful for this. But Madam Chair, I'm hoping to hear what the minister has to say about his commitment to introduce the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, and when can we expect that legislation? And I believe the minister spoke a little bit to this in the opening statement, but I'm wondering if we can unpack that a little bit more, please. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank the honourable member Mike for your question. We're committed, as you know, to advancing the rights of First Nations, Inuit, Métis people across Canada, and to really, as you have said, walk the path of reconciliation together. And part of that commitment is a commitment that I mentioned that you've just repeated. That is, we will introduce legislation on implementing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. UNDRIP, I prefer just to call it the Declaration, by the end of 2020, and that commitment was reiterated in the throne speech. We're working very hard right now with national Indigenous organizations, so the national leadership, but as well other levels of leadership across Canada, to best map a path forward and to see what we can do. We're using old Bill C-262 as a base, and seeing what we could improve now before implementing it, and we're going to continue to work closely in partnership. We're also reaching out to other industry stakeholders, and really just to reassure them that this is something that will help with resource development moving forward.
Thank you, Minister. I have a second question, and it actually relates to previous life as someone who's worked with youth in the community. So I know that supporting victims of crime is a priority for our government and for the minister. And I think it's also important to note the specific needs of children who are victims of crime. And just last week, Madam Chair, 2 masked intruders invaded a home in my riding with a loaded shotgun, and the only person in the home was a 14-year-old girl. This is a frightening reality for many Canadians, as we know. I'm wondering if the minister could discuss what we're doing to support children who are victims of crime.
Well, again, thanks, Mike, for that very important question. We're doing a great deal to help victims of crime, particularly vulnerable, our children, but in particular children who are in remote rural areas of Canada, and with particular focus on human trafficking, with particular focus on intimate partner violence or family violence. We have, through our fund, Strategic Aid Fund for Victims, which is a federal initiative, we're trying to encourage new approaches through organizations on the ground in order to provide service, increase capacity, and help the establishment of help and aid networks. One of the things that I would point to is support for child advocacy centers across Canada, CACs. I mentioned ones in Ontario in my remarks, but we have been doing this across Canada. I visited a number across Canada, a number of CACs. They're 360-degree wraparound services that are multidisciplinary, in which a child isn't re-traumatized. His family or her family is supported throughout. Police officers who interview do so in a non-confrontational setting, not in uniform. It's taped so that the kids never have to be interviewed twice, and their testimony can be used. Their testimony can be used further down the road. So we're really trying to support a number of these kinds of initiatives that represent best practices, but also really, really help victims a great deal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it looks like I have 1 minute left, Minister. So Annie Daisley is an advocate for First Nations women in Nova Scotia, and she's actually the new chief of the community of Wakeba, and I've worked with her quite a lot in the past year. Just building on the theme of reconciliation, I'm interested in your thoughts on what more could we be doing with respect to murder and missing Indigenous women. Thank you. And we have 30 seconds left.
Thank you. Thanks for that question again. Obviously, we need to move on the implementing the report. I know that our colleague Carolyn Bennett is working on an action plan developed with First Nations leadership, in particular female leadership amongst Indigenous peoples, and that really is the first step in the road that we walk together. But we really do need to implement those various recommendations.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Kellaway. I have Monsieur Fortin. The floor is yours, sir, for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome. Not member, but Mr. Minister. There's one aspect of the budget that is of particular interest. This pertains to the Judiciary Committee, and there are two things that attracted my attention: protection of the judiciary and the program for language training for justices. Independence of the judiciary. When it comes to the appointment process, Mr. Minister, can you tell us what the real cost is of the budget that is allocated for the selection process for, obviously, federal courts? What I can tell you, and thank you very much for your question, Riel, it's always a pleasure to have such conversations with you. The appointment process, well, there are costs associated with this program. There's the advice, the advisory, the CJAC in English. Their costs are related to the expenditures of members sitting on this committee of the CCM. As for the selection itself, in my office on the Hill, my departmental office, there are no costs associated with the departmental budget here. This is money for salaries that I use to pay my team for the process. But can you give me some type of order of magnitude? What does the actual cost make? Yes, I do understand it comes under your departmental budget. There's salaries, there's room rental, that type of thing. But do you have some type of number? Not for the time being, but I can provide you with a figure for costs associated with the program. And I have full-time people who work with the judiciary and work on the nomination process of justices. And if there are any other costs involved, I will get informed and I will provide you with proper numbers. Thank you. I have another question on the same topic. The Prime Minister has said in the House, and he said this several times in answering questions, including a question from me, that he used this famous list, the Liberal list of members or individuals, but this list was only used once candidates had gone through various stages of the nomination process. I'm not going to get into whether this is appropriate or not, but can you tell me what cost is related to examining candidacies with respect to the Liberal list? I can't tell you this because that's not part of the process in my department. And the Judicial Council I can't give you figures for that as well. We don't have access to this list. We have a process that is independent. It is above partisanship and it has nothing to do with political affiliation. So the committee makes its recommendations based on the candidacy files that they have. And it's not part of my job to do otherwise. I make my recommendation to the Prime Minister's office. And up until now, and I say this publicly, I've never blocked anyone in making a recommendation, and I never received any suggestions from the Prime Minister or from the Office of the Prime Minister with respect to appointments. So I can't give you an answer with respect to cost because that's not part of my portfolio. And can you tell me whether there are any projects or any studies done to improve the whole selection process? And here again, this refers to the federal judiciary. We did implement a system back in 2016, and I sincerely believe that it works quite well. Yes, there are delays from time to time, but generally speaking, the system works quite well. It's transparent. The lawyers throughout Canada are much more comfortable with the criteria and the work done, because that does involve a lot of work. Making an application entails a lot of work. And as for the quality of the process, as for the diversity of the appointments, well, we have got an exceptional record. Since 2016, 55% of the appointments have been women. Previously, the Conservatives, I believe less than 1/3 of the individuals appointed were women, and same thing applies to diversity. We are trying to enhance the diversity of our courts so that we have a bench that better reflects the face of Canada, if you like. So when it comes to quality and diversity, I think it works quite well. I have further questions, but I know that I'll have to wait to the next round.
A little bit over. Thank you very much, Monsieur Fortin. Mr. Garrison, for 6 minutes, please. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And certainly I want to thank you, Minister, for being here with us today. And I also want to thank you for the spirit of collaboration and cooperation that you've always exhibited toward me when it comes to the justice issues and justice files. I was very pleased to see you mention domestic violence or intimate partner violence in your opening statement. And I want to focus a little bit on this question. When I first did a phone round of the many police forces and detachments in my riding in March because of COVID, each and every one of them raised the problem of a spike in family violence or domestic violence and intimate partner violence in the onset of COVID. And I believe that this is a continuing trend and one that we will see exacerbated as many families struggle with loss of income, and other challenges posed by COVID. One of the things the police said to me was that they often lack tools to deal with this question of violence before it became over physical violence. And so I introduced a private member's bill, C-247, that tries to deal with the phenomena of coercive and controlling behavior, which quite often is a precursor to that violence. So this would provide police with another tool for which they could use to intervene earlier in intimate partner violence. So my question to the minister is the government interested in pursuing such an initiative that would help police have additional tools to deal with intimate partner violence?
Well, I think first of all, I thank you, Randall, honourable member, for your question and the feeling of respect is mutual. So I really appreciate your opening comments, and I thank you for them. And I share the same feelings. we're open. This would be in collaboration with both Ministers Monsef and Ministers Blair. Would be my initial reaction. But certainly anything that we can do to help reduce intimate partner violence is something we would look at very seriously. We have invested, in particular through Minister Monsef and WAGE. I know that's an unfortunate acronym, but through Minister Monsef in the COVID period in supporting and trying to reduce intimate partner violence. It is something that has been identified by a number of experts as having been exacerbated by the pandemic and the confinement in particular. And so we're sensitive to that. So I will undertake to look at that suggestion and that private member's bill very carefully.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. In your opening statement, you also mentioned the Victims Fund. And one of the other phenomena we've seen during COVID is a lot of the services to victims are provided by nonprofits, by charities, and of course, because families are facing increasing financial stress, this results in fewer donations to charities, and so fewer resources in the communities to help provide services to victims. Now, I know some of these funds the federal government has aren't in your purview, but the Victims Fund is. And in the main estimates, it shows a 41% cut to the Victims Fund from 25 million down to 15 million. This is a fund that has programs within it that provide grants for support of families of missing and murdered Indigenous women, provides support to families appearing at parole hearings. And so while I don't doubt your commitment to victims, the budget shows a very large cut in that fund. And I wondered whether you could explain, there may be a very good reason for this, but if you could explain why this is happening and how you'll make up for that cut.
Thank you for that question. I'll give the high-level answer. If there's any more detail, I may ask my officials to back me up. But there are two main reasons, actually, that there's been an over $10 million drop in that fund. The first is the sunsetting of the FILUs, the Family Information Liaison Units that were associated with MMIWG. Now, I have since managed to secure another 3 years of funding for the FILUs. That will come up, so $7.2 million will come back in, but they'll come up in supplementaries later on down the road. So that's part of the decrease. The other is a sunsetting, $3.8 million of a sunsetting of a fund for temporary measures to support and address prostitution. So that fund has sunset, but we have invested a greater amount of money through, again, Minister Monsef and WAGE on an anti-trafficking strategy. And so I think the figure is almost $30 million for that, but I can confirm that for you. So that money we feel it's being better deployed elsewhere. That certainly is the high level answer. And if any of my officials want to add any detail, I will let them, but I'll leave it up to you, Randall, to decide.
Thanks very much. I think that gives us a good idea of what's happening. Very quickly then, since you mentioned sex work, there was supposed to be a review of the legislation which recriminalized sex work after the Bedford decision, and that was supposed to start last December. And so one of the things that we've seen happening here is legislative reviews with nobody seeming to be in charge of making sure they actually happen. So I wonder if the minister can tell us today when we can expect some initiative on the review of sex work, since I believe, and certainly many other advocates in the sex work industry believe, the current legislation is very damaging and dangerous for those engaged in sex work.
Thank you, Mr. Garrison. I think the minister will have to dwell on that a little bit as we come to the second round of questions. Mr. Garrison will be asking you the same question again in his next round. We're moving on to the next round, which is 5 minutes each. We'll start with Mr. Cooper. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Great. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good morning, Honorable Minister. It's good to see you back at the Justice Committee. I just want to pick up where Mr. Garrison left off with respect to the main estimates and the Victims Fund. Now, in your reply to Mr. Garrison, you noted that part of that it has to do with an expiration or the sunsetting of funding under the Measures to Address Prostitution initiatives, or MAPI. Now, Minister, you noted that there is funding under the national strategy, but when the MAPI funding was sunsetted, organizations on the front lines to help women and girls who are at risk of sexual exploitation and human trafficking were literally left in the dark and forced to scramble. Megan Walker, who is the executive director of the London Abused Women's Centre, said, quote, "We never received anything from the government officially. No thank you for serving women on behalf of MAPI. No official notice MAPI was ending. No notice that we weren't funded through victims of crime. Just no correspondence," closed quote. How do you justify that?
Well, thank you, Michael. If I may, for your question, yes. Always it's good to see you and to respond to your concerns. So, as I'd mentioned in my previous answer to Randall Garrison, that program was sunsetting, and so I'd thank the MAPI Centre in London, Ontario. I was well aware, as you can assume, that funding would have an impact on them, and I would thank them for the work that they have done. As I had said, the figure is actually $19 million in a program to reduce human trafficking and to support those most impacted by human trafficking. That's through WAGE. So again, Minister Monsef's Women and Gender Equality Canada and Minister Monsef's purview. And my understanding is that she has established a relationship with MAPI in London, Ontario, and my understanding is they got COVID emergency funding through Minister Monsef. So I guess to the extent, on the one hand, a program came to an end, on the other hand, other opportunities opened up to help MAPI in London.
Well, thank you, Minister. And you did make reference to emergency funding in the summer. It's true that there was emergency funding provided, but that wasn't a replacement for the anti-human trafficking funds.
Yeah, that's fair. And as I said, that we determined that the question could be better tackled, better addressed through a different kind of programming, and that's where we've gone through Minister Monsef and the anti-human trafficking strategy.
Now, Minister, I want to talk a little bit about juror supports. Jurors play an integral role in the administration of justice, and according to a survey that has been done, Canadians would be more likely, are very hesitant to serve on a jury at this time, particularly due to COVID. What steps are you taking to work with the provinces and territories to achieve better supports for jurors and to address some of the issues that specifically arise from COVID?
Thank you for the question. You know, Michael, that I share your concern. We have agreed on this before, and I will agree with you again publicly. I've met with Marc Ferrand in my previous my first mandate, I suppose, under the last government, and we are willing to continue working, and I'm willing to continue working with provinces and territories. That being said, my priority right now is the court system generally with the pandemic. So it is important. It is a priority to me, and I've said that before, and I've shared that with you. And I can assure you that we will get to it. And Mr. Ferrand is in contact with various people across government, with your former colleague Anthony Housefather on this committee. So it will happen. I'm just not going to make a promise on dates that I can't keep at this stage, but that you have my sincere assurances that I will do my best.
Thank you very much, Minister Lametti. Mr. Cooper, you're out of time, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. Mr. Songa, you're up for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Minister, thank you very much for coming today to the committee. Welcome. Minister, supporting immigration has been a priority of this government. I understand the Department of Justice plays a role in supporting this and has had a step up to fill up funding shortfall created by the Ontario government. So through the chair, could you, Minister, talk about that problem, which is regarding the funding?
Thank you very much, Ramesh, for your question. Indeed, legal aid and immigration funding is critically important to our government. Legal aid funding generally is critical to access for justice. And there have been funding shortfalls in Ontario and elsewhere for a variety of different reasons. Some of which have been caused by COVID. Some of which have been caused by government policy. In Budget 2019, we announced an additional $49.6 million over 3 years for immigration and refugee legal aid, because that part comes directly under our jurisdiction. And that funding will increase in the 2020-2021 federal contribution from $11.5 million to $28.2 million, and that again helps support shortfalls in Ontario and across Canada.
Just follow-up question, one more, Minister. Do you feel this amount which you are telling regarding the fill-up, is it enough at this time, or still the claimants and the lawyers, they are feeling that it is a shortfall? It's still
Sorry, I'm just going to interject here, Mr. Sangha. Can you just make sure that that the sound on your headset is selected via Zoom, so that we're picking up the sound from the headset and not from the computer? I'm just going to stop your time here for a minute.
Is it okay now?
Is that better, Mr. Clerk?
Hello?
Yes, I think it sounded better.
It sounded better? Okay,
thank you very
please.
much.
Okay, continue,
So,
Mr. Sangha. If you can turn your microphone as your video on, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for correcting. Okay, Minister, now my question is that, I understand that you have given the figures which are sufficiently, seems to be enough. But do you think that this figures which you are giving, they are sufficient for this COVID and for the other purposes which legal aid is required? Because legal aid is a challenging subject now at this time for the lawyers and for the claimants of the refugee claim.
Again, thank you, and it's an important question. Certainly, COVID has put pressures on the system across Canada, and not just on immigration and refugee legal aid, but also there will be. And given the questions we've had previously, a recourse to legal aid in family law settings, and often, and there may even be aspects of intimate partner violence and whatnot. There may be increased bankruptcies that force people to legal aid, and then there are also funding questions, particularly in a place like Ontario, where a great deal of the funding comes from the foundation, and whose revenues will have been impacted by the market impact on their foundation funding. So it's a complex problem. I'm working with my provincial and territorial counterparts, and I'm always doing my best to seek resources for additional support. Is it enough? It's probably never enough, but we do our best under the circumstances to get as many resources as possible.
Thank you, Minister. Do I have time, Chair, more to ask the question?
You have 30 seconds left, Mr. Sangha.
Okay, thank you. I will forego it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sangha. I have Monsieur Fortin for 2.5 minutes now as we go into the second round. So Monsieur Fortin, you have 2.5 minutes.
Sorry, Minister, there are positions that need to be filled, judicial positions that need to be filled in Quebec. Yes, there are a few positions that need to be filled. But the name of the person that you're going to appoint for either at the Court of Appeal in Quebec, or how many are there? Do you know? I think between 2 and 4. I think 2 on the Court of Appeal and a number for the Superior Court. Minister, what's the proportion of federal justices that are currently in office in Canada and who can hold trials in both French and English? That's very difficult to say because justices keep the figures and they view this as a question of judicial independence. But what I can say is that the justices that we have appointed since 2016, well, 32% of them are federal justices throughout Canada. 32% of these federal justices throughout Canada are functionally bilingual. Therefore, they're able to do their job in both languages, and 12% can understand the material. Okay, how can you assure, because there's this whole evaluation process and this ongoing training, but the ongoing training for justices, but based on my experience, from what I've seen, there is always an opportunity for justice to improve their abilities in the other language. But how about assessing it? I know time is going by quickly. Is there an evaluation process so that we can determine how well they are able to function in both languages? For the Supreme Court of Canada, yes. There's a test, and same thing applies to the other justices as well. There is someone assesses their capacity, and for the federal courts and these other courts, this is viewed as an asset to be able to hold a trial in both languages. And the 9 justices.
Timeline here. Thank you. Merci, Monsieur Fortin.
Merci à vous, Madame la Présidente. Tu as une bonne idée.
Thank you very much. This little 30 seconds sign, that was a good idea. Thank you.
I'm trying to keep it tight. Mr. Garrison, you have 2.5 minutes, sir. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I want to return to the question of sex work. And in doing so, first, I just want to acknowledge that there is a difference between human trafficking, which is prevalent in many industries, not just in sex work, and actual sex work. And so my question to the minister, which he wasn't allowed to answer before, was about the mandated review of Bill C-36. And I want to give him a chance to answer that briefly.
Thank you. Thanks again for the question. And you know that I share your sex work is legal according to the Bedford decision. A bunch of things around it were criminalized by the previous government, and that's what we have to review. And I do hope to be in a position to be able to do that. I can't promise you a date given current events. And I do understand very well the difference between human trafficking, which we abhor, and sex work, which again has been found to be legal. And I know that you're well aware that I hear this often from my colleague Hedy Fry, as well as from you, Randall, and I appreciate those interventions on both of your parts.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. My main concern, of course, is the safety of sex workers and their ability to support their families during COVID. Can I turn just quickly, in the very little time we have left, to the rise of online hate, and in particular the rise of anti-Semitism during COVID, a very unfortunate sidebar that we have to deal with. This committee in the previous Parliament tabled a report called Taking Action Against Online Hate, which I don't believe the government ever officially responded to. And in that report, it called for reinstating Section 13 of the Canadian Human Rights Code, which would allow people to file complaints about online hate with the Human Rights Commission. So I just wonder if the minister has a response to that specific part of the Justice Committee's recommendation.
Yes, I do, and Arif Virani, who's with us, is part of that response, because it was in my mandate letter to look at that. So there was, in effect, a government response during the election as part of our platform, and then during my mandate letter. And I have, in turn, it's important to me, but I can't do everything. So I've, in turn, given that to Parliamentary Secretary Virani as part of his mandate, and I know that he is looking at that very carefully. In addition to Section 13 and therefore revisions within our shop, he's working very closely with Minister Stephen Guilbeault in Heritage Canada and Minister Navdeep Bains to look at a wider response to online hate as well.
Thank you so much, Minister Lametti. Thank you, Mr. Garrison. And now we're moving to Madam Findlay for 5 minutes, please. Madam Findlay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here with us today. It is much earlier in BC, as you can imagine, but glad to see you just the same. I have some questions regarding commissions and tribunals. Canadian Human Rights Commission. I was noting that in the 2020-21 department plan for the Canadian Human Rights Commission, there's a note that the Commission will continue to advocate for improved access to human rights justice by raising awareness and understanding of the barriers to equality and access to justice that individuals in vulnerable circumstances are facing. So my question, Minister, is how much of the $32 million main estimate for 2021 will be spent on raising awareness and understanding of the barriers to equality and access to justice? And what are some concrete examples of such programs?
Okay, I'd certainly, certainly as a high-level response, I would say that we have a number of different institutions across government and a number of different programs that focus on access to justice. Legal aid is one of the concrete examples that tries to reduce barriers to justice for a variety of different people across Canada. And I think it's probably fair to say, in my view, the primary example. But other things that I have mentioned, increasing programming on awareness to sexual harassment, which can act as a barrier to justice. But for more specific questions with respect to the tribunal, I'm going to turn to my administrative colleagues here.
I'll just say, while they're getting organized, I note there's $6,842,569 set to be spent on engagement and advocacy in the 2021 estimates.
If I may, Madam Chair, we don't have here the breakdown of the budget of the Human Rights Commission, but we can undertake to respond to the MP to that specific question.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Minister, the main estimates again for the Commission say it's going to cost $9 million more in the 2020-21 estimates than in 2019-20. The Commission itself, $32 million in 2021 versus $23 million in 2019-20. So I'm wondering what exactly has led to that 28% increase. How will those additional funds be spent?
Again, I believe that that Bill Kroll will undertake to get those particular. He will have to delve into the actual reports of the commission, but we will undertake to get that information to you.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that as well. Minister, perhaps you could walk us through the number of complaints and inquiries received by the Commission year over year. Are we seeing less cases filed during the pandemic or not? How does the total number of cases impact planned spending?
Again, that's a similar question. I would have to sit down with the officials from the Canadian Human Rights Commission to go through and get you a more detailed breakdown, but we can undertake to do that.
Okay, so then maybe just in that vein, I'll ask my other questions because it may be the same response, which is what are the Canadian Human Rights Commission's fixed versus variable costs? And how will the pandemic affect this spending? And how has it affected that spending? And also, how are the funds allocated amongst the various prohibited grounds of discrimination? In other words, what are we seeing in terms of the, perhaps you call it the theme of cases coming forward to the Commission? What is the Commission actively dealing with?
Right.
Ms. Findlay, it's, excuse me, Mr. Minister, it's my understanding that the Minister may not be able to answer questions specific to the Canadian Human Rights Commission, but I leave it to the Minister for his discretion if he's able to do so.
Yeah, once again, I think that was going to be the subject matter of your supplementary estimates visit from the leadership from the Canadian Human Rights Commission. And so I'm not in a position right now to be able to answer those questions. It would be better to pose those questions directly to the administrators of the CHRC.
All right, would that the same be true, thank you, Madam Chair, would that be also true for the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal? I served on that tribunal for 5 years, so I'm quite interested in the planned expenditures of the Administrative Tribunal Support Service of Canada.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so Madam Chair, maybe you can help me here. Should I state those? I had two questions on that, or do I give them to you so that we can get those responses?
We'll discuss that during committee business after we finish asking the Minister on the main estimates. And so we'll come back to your concerns, Ms. Findlay, but I see that your time is up now.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to Mr. Maloney. You have 5 minutes, sir. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you, Minister, for taking time out of what we all know is a very busy schedule that you have to answer our questions. I have a couple of questions, and my first question relates to access to justice, but judges in particular. As everybody knows, we just completed our discussion on Bill C-3 earlier this week, and one takeaway from that is that I believe we are all united in our view that we have the greatest court system in the world, and nobody questions the integrity of our court system. As an aside, actually, I was glad to hear your answer with respect to the process for appointing judges, because I believe the same applies with respect to our appointment process, and that everybody believes in the integrity of the process, and that when people do question it publicly, it is likely done only as a political jab meant to get some headlines, and it's not a genuinely held belief, but that's just my perspective. In any event, on the access to justice front, which is important to all of us, we need access to a fair and equitable justice system, has been mentioned today. You mentioned it in your opening remarks. My view is that one of the greatest barriers to access to justice is the number of judges we have available. Access to justice has different challenges in different parts of the country, but in Ontario, where I'm from, in Toronto in particular, the wait time to get a case heard is extraordinary. And we're familiar with the Jordan case and the impact that has had. Family law matters are delayed. Civil matters are an entirely different. They're a third cousin on this issue. In Toronto or other jurisdictions nearby, you could be waiting up to 2 years to get a trial date after you've listed it for trial and the case is already a few years old. And then you get close to the date only to find out we don't have enough judges or enough courtrooms. Now, so my question is, has there been consideration given to increasing the complement of Superior Court judges across the country? And there's a coinciding cost to that, I realize, which is partially a provincial responsibility because court services and courthouses are matters that the province deals with. And I have a follow-up question related to that too. So sorry for the long introduction.
The short answer, thank you, James, for your question and your work on Bill C3 and your committee work. The short answer to the question is yes, continually. So there's always back and forth between the federal government and the provincial governments with respect to the number of judges. So these are the federally appointed Superior Court level judges across Canada. And you're right to say that then there is a shared cost with the provinces because provinces have the responsibility for the administration of justice. So the numbers do go back. Requests come, get evaluated, and that's pretty much a continual process year over year. But I agree that we need to address delays in the justice system, and I share your observation that because of Jordan, the criminal stuff goes first, and the civil stuff gets relegated. And so we need to find ways. Not only we've worked hard in my ministry, and with Minister Wilson-Raybould before me to try to address the Jordan decision and make the system more efficient and effective through Bill C-75 and other provisions. But you're right, and this would be mainly with the provinces trying to figure out a way on the provincial side to make sure that civil cases move more quickly. That falls within their jurisdiction. But we need to continue looking at solutions on all fronts because you're right to identify the waiting times as being too long.
Thank you, Minister. Okay, so my follow-up question then is, COVID has caused the court system to adapt in ways that they've been thinking about for a long time, but didn't get around to. One of them is the use of technology like we're doing right now. There's many proceedings are being done by Zoom and other technology, so lawyers don't have to leave their offices and you don't require courtrooms and whatnot. So that may provide an opportunity because you could have more judges without the need for more courtrooms necessarily. So I'm wondering I guess the cost of COVID on the court system at this point, it's too early to tell what it is, but I know some of it's been used for technology. I'm just wondering, is there a thought being put towards sort of making some of that permanent and building that into the conversation about my previous question?
Short answer is yes. It's subject of both discussions with my provincial and territorial counterparts during COVID and will continue on, as well as with the Action Committee and with the magistrates, the chief magistrates from across Canada and other court administrators. We're all trying to get resources to make permanent and more efficient some of the technological changes that have been a response to the COVID crisis. And so we're trying to use this to modernize.
Thank you so much,
Thank you, Minister.
I appreciate your short response to that. So I'm just going to stop here for a second and note that we have one round of questions left with about 15 minutes on the clock because we do have committee business that we need to discuss with respect to the next meetings and also obviously to vote on the main estimates as well. So what I'm going to do is you'll have one round for Mr. Lewis for 5 minutes, Mr. Zuberi for 5 minutes, Monsieur Fortin for 2.5 minutes, Mr. Garrison for 2.5 minutes, and then we will thank the Minister for his attendance here today. So with that, Mr. Lewis, you have the floor for 5 minutes. Please go ahead, sir.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and we certainly appreciate the Minister coming to committee today. So thank you so much, Minister. I'm gonna build off of the line of questioning from Mr. Senga with regard to legal aid. As you may or may not be aware, I'm the Ontario Conservative on Justice, so I'd be remiss not to bring this up. Minister, community legal clinics across the country, but particularly in Ontario, have been asking the federal government for support from the federal government. They say COVID-19 has impacted their financial model and that without support, they risk severe consequences. For example, The Durham Region Law Association recently wrote to raise significant concerns over the shortfall that has developed. What dialogue has the minister had with his department or provincial stakeholders on this to date?
The short answer is a great deal, both with Minister Downey in Ontario and between our two teams, as well as with stakeholders from across Ontario. MPs like yourself, Mr. Lewis, but also a number of MPs in my caucus, led by Parliamentary Secretary Virani, who's been one of the loudest. So we're following it very closely. We're well aware there are current asks, if you don't mind me putting it that way, on my behalf that are being evaluated, and again, working closely with Doug Downey.
Thank you, Minister. And as a supplementary to that, legal aid organizations are raising concerns that because of the funding shortfall, it impacts their ability to help vulnerable Canadians. Does the minister expect the situation to grow worse in the coming months?
I don't. On the one hand, I expect there to be more need. I hinted at that answer in a previous answer. Because of COVID, we're seeing more stress on families. We're seeing more stress on businesses. So we're going to see more recourse on legal aid on the non-criminal side, and then we're also going to see more on the criminal side because of intimate partner violence, and we still have the same pressures: immigration, refugee, etc. So on that side, I think that's going to continue. The funding picture is more complicated, and it's different from province to province, and so there too. I don't know that there's one response across Canada, but again, we're working closely with provincial and territorial counterparts to try to address that as it comes up.
Thank you, Minister. And just switching gears now to domestic violence, and I do know that there has been some discussion on that this morning / this afternoon, but specifically, COVID-19 has led to a rise in domestic violence across Canada over the course of this year. What discussions have taken place within the department on this, and what actions has it taken to address this?
Well, again, working in addition to the legal aid, questions, it's been a discussion that the department and my team has had with Wage. So the ministry led by Minister Monsef, which has specifically put funding in place during COVID. $19 million was the figure I mentioned to help address not 19 million. That's a different figure, but a program to help address intimate partner violence. So we're aware of it. We're working with organizations on the ground, both my department and Minister Monsef's department and our ministerial teams. And we work closely with our provincial counterparts in that regard as well.
Thank you, Minister. Chair, how much time do I have left, please? Thank you. Well done, Madam Chair. The issue of rural crime has been in the news numerous times over the past year, and the minister can appreciate in rural communities such as mine, it takes much longer for law enforcement authorities to show up. Does the minister have a timeline when we could see greater action on rural crime?
Thank you for the question. It's a question that was first raised by former Alberta Justice Minister Doug Schweitzer at a federal, provincial, territorial meeting, and since that time, my deputy minister Nathalie Drouin and other deputies across Canada, federal and provincial, have been working at studying that question. I don't have a timeline. Deputy Minister Drouin, if you wanted to quickly give an idea of where that work stands, Mr. Lewis, I think would be appreciative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Minister Lametti. Indeed, we do have a working group co-chaired by our colleagues from Alberta to work on rural crimes. We will have an interim report to present at the next FPT meeting, actually planned in December. So we have advanced a great deal. I cannot commit on a specific time right now, but I can confirm that we are progressing a lot with the support of Alberta.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks very much. I really appreciate you guys sticking to the time. Mr. Zaberi, now it's your turn for 5 minutes, please. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Mr. Lametti for being here.
Indigenous people. In Canada, the rate of violent victimization of Indigenous people is more than double that of non-Indigenous people. This is particularly concerning around Indigenous women and girls. Que fait votre ministre pour soutenir les...
What does your department do to support Indigenous women?
Okay, merci.
Thank you, Samir, for your question. Obviously, this is a very important issue. We are working as a department to improve programs to help Indigenous women and girls. I already talked about the FILU. These are organizations that assist people in the field. They help women, children, and their families, and this work will continue for 3 years. We also work closely with the other departments to assist them, to help support women. And Minister Bennett is responsible for responding to the INFADA Commission report. And I do believe that this will be happening in the next few weeks. Thank you very much.
We'll touch upon the issue of sexual harassment in the workplace. And I'd like to highlight that this is something that we're seized by as a country and have been over the last several months. Prior to COVID, there was a very robust Me Too movement. And we'd like to have some responses about that to know what the government's doing around this. In terms of the workplace, everybody, regardless of their gender or gender identity, has a right to work in a harassment-free workplace. Pouvez-vous expliquer le travail?
Can you explain the work done at Justice to deal with work harassment?
On that, thank you.
Oui. Okay. Encore une fois, merci.
Once again, thank you for your question. I announced just last year in budget 2019, $50 million over 3 years to fight against work harassment. $25 million of this amount will be used for legal aid for those who need it, for cases of harassment in the workplace, and the other half will be used to help organizations that provide information on the subject. And I made this announcement throughout Canada. And these amounts were very well received by these organizations. This will have an impact because you're quite right. It's very important that people have the opportunity to deal with this. Thank you, Minister. My last question.
Base upon Black Lives Matter. And at the beginning of COVID, we saw a very robust conversation around Black Lives Matter. This led to the Parliamentary Black Caucus sending a letter to government asking for movement on the file. We also are seeing many concerns around Indigenous people. Can you please inform us about what your ministry is doing with respect to racialized Canadians, Black Canadians, and Indigenous peoples?
Thank you very much for that important question, Samir. There is systemic racism in our justice system. We have to admit that first and foremost. There is overrepresentation of Black and Indigenous peoples in our justice system. That falls directly within my mandate. speech from the throne has admitted that, and I signed that letter, by the way, in my qualities as a member of Parliament. So I believe we need to address this. It's in the speech from the throne. There will be measures from a wide variety of ministers and ministries and departments trying to address the overrepresentation and other issues raised by both Black and Indigenous and other visible minority leadership across Canada. And I look forward hope to be able to announce soon what's being done by the Minister of Justice.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Minister Lametti, and thank you, Mr. Zuberi. I now go to Monsieur Fortin for 2.5 minutes, sir, please. Thank you.
Merci, thank you, Madam Chair. Minister, given that I don't have much time, I'd like to go back to the previous answers to my question. I want to make sure I understood correctly. You talked about the efficiency of the judicial appointment process. This system has been in force since 2016, and that right now there are no studies done to change the process. Second aspect, as for the training of judges, language training, I understand that there is a process for the Supreme Court, but that's not the case for other courts. Correct me if I'm wrong. And the question that I'd like to conclude with, and correct me if I'm wrong, what type of training is provided to justices on bilingualism? And I do understand you said that 32% of the judges at the federal level are able to hold a trial in French, and 12% are able to understand written French. But you said that there was no test to assess their capacity or ability. So where do these figures come from? If there's no test done to verify the justice's ability to communicate in French, well, what does that mean? Do you have figures? First of all, I am going to ask for some help from my deputy minister, but beforehand, I'd like to say that there is a test that is conducted by the Mr. Marc Jeannot at the Judicial Council, and this is a test that's administered not only for Supreme Court justices. I'm talking about applications that we have just gone through. So we received information on the application forms, and yes, there is an assessment test. For the Superior Court, for the Supreme Court, there is an evaluation. Yes. I don't know if it's mandatory. But I'll turn the floor over to Mrs. Drouin. And the results of the tests, are they accessible? Could we have access to the results of these tests? I'm going to turn the floor over to Ms. Drouin. Thank you, Madam Chair. Minister, I'm pleased to see you, Mr. Fortin. The Judicial Advisory Committee works with a language training institute, and these institutes do provide language training in French for justices. This is a program that has proven itself to assist judges becoming functional in the other language. So this is a training that goes over several weeks, if not months. So that's for your question on the training. And the evaluation? I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for shaking you up, but we're so constrained by the time. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. You're doing your job well.
Thank you. Mr. Garrison, you're up for 2.5 minutes. Thank you so much for sticking to the time. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I want to start by thanking the Minister for his frank acknowledgement that there is systemic racism in the Canadian justice system, and also for acknowledging the overrepresentation of Indigenous people and racialized Canadians. And while the statements of government are very positive, they're sometimes frustratingly vague. And so, as not to commit the same offense myself, let me ask very specifically about one measure which would make the biggest difference in the everyday situation of those people who are differentially treated in our justice system. mandatory minimums. So can we expect any initiative from this government to reduce or eliminate mandatory minimums except for the most serious crimes? And if there's not going to be an initiative from the government, will the government support the bill that's making its way through the Senate, S-208, on mandatory minimums, which gives discretion back to judges not to impose them?
Thanks very much for the question. I'm well aware of Senator Pate's bill, and I've discussed it with her. As you know, we have a system of cabinet confidences, and so I can't always answer in the most fulsome way. What I can say is that mandatory minimums and the related point of conditional sentences, the possibility of having conditional sentences, are on my radar screen. I'm sorry, I can't do better than that.
Thanks very much, Mr. Minister. And Madam Chair, I'll conclude my questions there because I think we're going to be short of time on the next part as well.
That was very gracious of you, Mr. Garrison. I really appreciate that. So that concludes our rounds of questioning. What I would like to do before we say goodbye to our wonderful minister and officials.
Point of order.
Yes, Mr. Moore.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I thought in our schedule today, and we only have so many opportunities to have the minister here, and I think the conversation's going well, getting some answers and so on. I thought we were having the minister till 1:45.
You are absolutely right, Mr. Moore, with respect to having the minister available for as much time as we can as a committee. My concern is that I need to, for us to vote on the mains and the subs, and then for us to talk about committee business specifically with respect to bills that are appearing before our committee. And I would also like to get Madame Finley's questions on the record so that we can get them answers. And that's why I'm taking the discretion to not go to the last 10 minutes of questions. So obviously, what I have on the schedule is around 5 minutes of Conservatives and 5 minutes of Liberals that are remaining from this round. I've kind of taken the liberty to dock that so we can use that time to put Madam Finley's questions on the record so we can get answers for them, to vote on the mains and the subs, and then to go over the witnesses for what is happening in the next couple of weeks. Is that okay with you, Mr. Moore?
Well, not to belabor, I guess I could be asking the minister a question during this time, but I don't think we can have a vote on the SUPs because we haven't heard any answers to questions on the SUPs. I understand why we didn't deal with the SUPs because the Human Rights Commission couldn't appear, but in light of the fact that the minister came prepared to deal with the mains and not the SUPs, and we weren't able to get answers on questions related to the SUPs, like Madam Finley, I don't think we could proceed with a vote on the SUPs today.
Absolutely fair, Mr. Moore. Thank you. And I had put this question to the committee before we started the questions, and I do remember that I had received thumbs up to continue with the SUPs from all of you. But if you've since then reconsidered, that's absolutely fine. What we'll do is during committee business, we'll discuss a later time to have the relevant agencies to deal with the SUPs to come before our committee and to answer those very important questions that you have.
Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, on a point of order, perhaps I participated in that sort of thumbs up, thumbs down vote, and I believe there was consensus among the committee, but perhaps we could have a vote on that. I do think it's important as a preliminary point that Ms. Finley's points, if the individuals who relate, the organizations that relate to the supplementary estimates aren't appearing, then her question should definitely be put on the record and she should be provided written responses. But as to the issue of whether we're having another meeting on the supplementary estimates, perhaps that could be put to a vote of the committee members. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Point of order,
yes,
Madam Chair.
Please go ahead, Ms. Finley.
I was one of the people who gave a thumbs up because I assume the minister would be in the position then to respond to whatever questions were put. He was not in a position to do so, and neither were his officials here. None of them could respond to any of my questions on the commission spending, nor did they say they were able to discuss anything with respect to the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal, which is fine, but then that definitely changes my support for for us going ahead on a vote before we have the information we need.
Absolutely, Ms. Findlay. In my remarks earlier at the beginning of the meeting, I thought I had made it clear. I should have made it more clear that the minister would not be able to respond to questions on the subs. So what I would like to do then, just to deal with this issue, is to put it to a vote. We have two options before us. We can have a meeting on the subs to vote on the subs at a later time. Obviously, there are specific deadlines that we would have to keep in mind, which may throw off our schedule for other things. The alternative is that we can put your questions, Madam Findlay, and any other questions that we have with respect to the subs on the record today, get written responses, and then at a later time during committee business, we can vote on the subs once we have those written responses. Is that something that we can all agree to do?
Could I just make one further intervention,
go ahead,
Madam Chair? Just on this very specific point, I think what you're alluding to is the very pressing deadline that we have with respect to the medical assistance in dying legislation, which has a court-imposed deadline of December 18th. So my view is not in any way to prevent Ms. Findlay from getting the answers to her important questions. And as a former employee of the Canada Human Rights Commission, I think those are very good questions that she was presenting. But what I would say is simply that given the precious nature of the resource that we are now using, the translation, the IT, etc., that when we've got a court-imposed deadline to get a bill through two houses of Parliament to royal assent, that needs to take precedence. So I'm loath to convene another meeting on the supplementary estimates that might jeopardize our ability to meet that deadline, which I think is incumbent upon all parliamentarians to work towards meeting. Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I just have one further comment?
Yes, please go ahead.
There's a 28% increase in spending with respect to the Commission from last year. I believe my questions are extremely important and something we should know about. It may be that if I am given written responses in detail in the committee, the committee members are able to see that, we could deal with the supplementary estimates in fairly short order. I think we're presuming that this is going to take a long time when we actually don't know that. So my comment would be, I think these questions on spending are very pertinent. The Human Rights Commission, if my colleague has served on it, as I've served on the tribunal, we know that they are integral parts of equity-seeking individuals and groups in our country, and how money is allocated there and how it's spent, and a large increase, particularly at time of COVID when perhaps there hasn't been the same take-up. I don't know. That's part of my questioning. So I would really would like to see that we have the opportunity to see that information and not presuppose the time on it. It may not take much time at all if we feel we've got the answers we need in writing.
Madam Chair, if I might jump in, I'm willing to undertake to get those answers to MP Findlay. And I mean, again, my understanding is a lot of that increase was based on the new requirements on the Accessibility Act and implementing the Accessibility Act. But we can, I'm perfectly happy to undertake to get her those answers, or for the department or my team to get her those answers, and for the committee as well, the whole committee.
Thank you, Mr. Lametti, for stepping in. I really do appreciate your proactiveness on this. Mr. Garrison, I see that your hand is raised for this point of order.
Yes, Madam Chair. I think we need to make some clear decisions here. And so for me, the best way to proceed would be to conduct a vote on whether we are going to vote on the supplementary estimates today. And then we can discuss, if we are not doing that, what the alternatives are. I think you made yourself very clear at the beginning, and I'm not a fan of do-overs. So I think we should tackle these questions in a very simple, straightforward manner. Are we going to vote on the secondary or the supplementary estimates today? And if not, then we can deal with these other questions in committee business.
Okay. So with that, then I'll put it to the committee to decide. I do need to put Madam Finley's questions on the record. So Ms. Finley, why don't you read out your questions so that we all have them on the record and we can deal with them at a later time with respect to how to proceed with the subs or the mains at this time. So please, Madam Finley, if at your earliest, if possible. Thank you. We're short on time.
Is that including the ones I stated already? You want me to?
The ones that you've already stated are good. Just the ones that you didn't have the opportunity to that are specifically to the subs.
Thank you. The question was asking for an explanation how the additional $9 million in spending in 2020-21 will be spread across supporting the various tribunals supported by the Administrative Tribunal Support Service of Canada. We have $72 million in 2020-21 versus $63 million in 2019-20. And then secondly, what factors or metrics are used to allocate the $72 million that will be spent in 2021 across each of the various tribunals?
Thank you very much, Ms. Finley. As the Minister has said, and as the Clerk has also confirmed, we will undertake to get written answers to the questions that were posed by you today. With that, I would like to thank the Minister and the witnesses for your time today, for answering so candidly. We really appreciate having you here. And hopefully we'll have you back again on some other hot topics. Thank you very much for your presence here today. Thank you. So we'll just give it a couple of minutes for them to leave. Mr. Lewis, I see your hand raised, and we'll come to you next.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to make a statement that, and I do respect Mr. Virani very much and his comments with regard to the December 18th, but in my short time here, just shortly over a year in politics, it seems as though we're always rushed, and everything is last minute. It's got to be pushed through. And I come from the business world. The business world, we take time to gather the proper information to make an educated decision. So I just really want to back my colleague, Ms. Finley, on this. It's real difficult to make decisions unless we have all the information. So thank you, Madam Chair, for letting me say that.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Lewis. So we're now in the committee business portion. What I would hope that I can get your agreement on is that once we receive written responses to Ms. Finley's questions, and she was the only one who's asked any questions that touch on the supplementary estimates. Once we receive them, maybe at another meeting, that we can just vote on the supplementary estimates without having to spend a whole meeting on them. I leave that to your discretion, and we can put that to a vote so that I can be sure exactly what all of you are saying, and so we can move forward in a collaborative fashion. But I think that would be the most prudent way for us to move forward on this. But I seek your opinion also, obviously keeping in mind that we need to get through the voting on the main estimates as well as witnesses for C7, which I know everybody's quite anxious about. So if I can hear from Mr. Virani.
So I'm just a little bit unclear. I think we did make a decision at the start of this meeting. Some people are saying that it wasn't clear what we were voting on. I thought it was clear. Mr. Garrison thought it was clear. Perhaps the most efficacious way is simply to say, should we vote today on the mains and the subs, or should we only vote today on the mains? And just leave it that clear, because all of those other qualifiers makes it a little bit hard for everyone to understand. So my understanding is that we were voting today on the mains and the supplementary. And if that's what people want to do, maybe you just put it to the group that clearly. Do you approve of voting in favor of both the mains and the supplementary right now? Thanks.
So can I then ask
point of clarification, Madam Chair? Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm correct on this. There is a deadline for the mains of November 27th, but am I not right that the deadline is later for the subs being December 8th? So the same time, we're not in exactly the same time crunch for both. Is that correct?
So my understanding, and I'll have the clerk kind of support me on this, but my understanding is that the deadline for the subs it could potentially be a moving target. We just want to make sure that that we kind of have it done and back. But Mr. Clerk, if you want to speak to that for a second, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. You're absolutely right. If I summarize, is the deadline for reporting supplementary estimates is always 3 sitting days prior to the last opposition day that will be given to the opposition in the House of Commons before December 10. So as you mentioned, it's indeed a moving target because who designate this opposition day? It's the government, and we learn only down the road when that last opposition day will be held. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So on that, I please excuse me. I understand that we only have 15 minutes left of our meeting. We have a lot on the agenda to still get through. So I will call that question. Those that are in favor of voting on the mains and the supplementaries today, please raise your hand. So I see Mr. Virani 1, Mr. Zuberi 2, Mr. Garrison 3, Mr. Maloney 4, Mr. Songa 5. Mr. Clerk, do we have enough to vote on both?
You have 5 thumbs up, as I saw.
Yes.
Well,
do I need to take a recorded vote on this,
yeah,
Mr.
you need to take a recorded vote if there is no unanimous consent or it's not
Okay.
agreed, for instance, on division. So
Okay.
if
In that case, then, Mr. Clerk, can you please go ahead and take the recorded vote for whether we are voting on the mains and the supplement, the subs today, please? Go ahead.
Okay, absolutely. I will need a mover for that motion. So if it's all right, I will put the question to Mr. Virani as a mover.
Yes, that's fine.
Mr. Cooper.
Against.
Ms. Finlay.
Against.
Monsieur Fortin.
Contre.
Mr. Garrison.
For.
Mr. Kellaway.
For.
Mr. Lewis.
I vote against.
Mr. Maloney.
For.
Mr. Moore.
Against.
Mr. Sangha.
For.
In favor, Mr. Sangha?
In favor.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Virani?
In favor.
Hey, Monsieur Zuberi.
Pour.
So, yeas 6, nays 5, 5.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Clerk. Then we'll go ahead with the voting on the main estimates and the supplementary estimates at this time. If you'd like to, well, I guess that would be me. So I ask the committee shall vote 1 under Administrative Tribunals Support Service of Canada carry. Are we going to vote recorded, or would you like to vote on division or unanimously?
Point d'ordre, Madame la Présidente. Juste
On a point of order, what's the question exactly? Are we voting on the mains?
The mains at this time.
Okay.
The question is, shall vote 1 under Administrative Tribunals Support Service of Canada carry? And the amount in question is 15402,691. So in that case, then, Mr. Clerk, if you'd like to carry out a recorded vote at this time.
Mr. Cooper?
I thought we were going to go on division.
I didn't hear a response from anybody when I asked that, but we're happy to go on division.
I think we're
on
prepared to go
division.
Sorry, Mr. Virani, were you saying something?
Well, I'm not sure what Mr. Cooper just asked, but I guess there was no clarity. But I'm happy to vote on this based on consent rather than on division. But
Mr. Clerk, if you can provide some clarity to us, please, what the impact of both would be.
Well, you have three options, basically, committee members. One option is there's a clear unanimous consent among the committee members. Everybody's in agreement. The motion could be adopted or carried on division. That's your second option. And the third option is the recourse to a recorded vote. Thank you.
Well, normally, these normally, at least in this committee and the previous 4 years that I served on it, we typically handled this by moving forward on division.
And that's absolutely fine as long as they're we get a clear vote on them. So, Mr.
Je suis aussi d'accord avec Monsieur Cooper.
I agree with Mr. Cooper, Madam Chair.
I'm also in approval of what Mr. Cooper is suggesting, so that we would approve it on division.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Clerk, we're going to be approving all of the main estimates on division. Do I need to read the questions?
No, but you would need the unanimous consent to basically vote them with the same vote result in a block.
Okay. So do I have the unanimous consent of the committee?
Oui.
Yes. So go ahead, Mr. Clerk.
So if I understand correctly, all the votes for the main estimates 2020-2021 will be carried on division. Is that right, Madam Chair?
That's correct.
Okay,
yes.
Perfect. And you have you do have a last question to to report the matter to the House.
Absolutely. So shall I report the main estimates 2020-21 to the House?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So moving on to SUPS B of 2020-2021 to be carried on division.
Oui.
Thank you. Shall I report the supplementary estimates B 2020-2021 to the House?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. So thank you, everyone. And I will seek your indulgence to stick around a little bit longer as we get through what important things we need to talk about. Just a
point of order, Madam
yes,
Chair.
Mr. Moore.
I mean, we're on a schedule here. I'm happy to deal for the next 8 minutes, but I can't stick around longer after that. I'm assuming everyone else has tight schedules too.
Hopefully we'll be done by 8 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Moore. I just, 1 or 2 minutes, I would seek your indulgence.
Madame la Présidente, un point d'ordre.
On a point of order, I'm going to have to leave this time. My colleague, Mr. Theriault, will be replacing me.
First, Monsieur Fortin, items deals with you. So the clerk has received notification from the Bloc Québécois that Monsieur Theriault intends to participate actively in the C7 study, and he will be replacing Monsieur Fortin.
Exactly.
His office would like to be added to our distribution list and to our digital binder for the duration of the study. Is it okay with the committee for us to move forward with that? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's nicer than me, so you will appreciate it. Merci. Bonne fin de journée.
Thank you, and I wish everyone a good day.
Thank you, Monsieur Fortin. And so just moving on to Bill C7, we are not voting on it until 3 p.m. today, at which time it will be referred to our committee. So for the first meeting, which is scheduled for November 3rd, this coming Tuesday, if I have the consent of the committee, we'd like to invite Ministers Lametti, Hajdu, and Qualtrough to appear together on C7. If I have your consent, would that be okay?
Madam Chair, I believe it's those three ministers and their officials.
And
so
their
perhaps
officials,
their
absolutely.
deputy ministers.
Yes, and their officials. We're good? Okay. Thank you. So that's that. And then with respect to the witness list, I have, I believe it's 99 to 100 names on the list. In our last steering committee, we had decided that we were going to have 4 meetings for witnesses and then 2 meetings for clause by clause. So 4 meetings would be 2 panels per meeting, which would be 8 panels of 3 witnesses per panel. So that would come to a total of 24 witnesses. And if I have the consent of the committee to just make things more equitable for everybody, is that in the instance of the 24 witnesses that we have given ourselves allowance for, that we divide it so that 10 of those witnesses are proposed by the Liberals, 10 by the Conservatives, 2 by the Bloc, and 2 by the NDP, and that we allow for an unlimited number of written submissions to be made by any witnesses to be received by the clerk. Is that okay?
Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm. You're on mute, sir. There we go.
Yeah, I have a concern with the number of people that have expressed an interest. You say it's 99 that are proposed. Could we then add another witness to our panels and accommodate 4, which would allow some more people to be heard on a very important topic?
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Garrison, is that on the same topic? You're on mute, sir.
It's on the topic of witnesses. I object to the 10-10-2-2. I will not agree to that.
Okay, what do you propose, sir?
9933.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Virani.
So to Mr. Moore's point, I'm amenable to going to 4 witnesses per panel. It's going to require some give and take in terms of the questioning, but that would make for 32 witnesses, which on the original balance would be 12-12-4-4. I'm not sure if that appeases Mr. Garrison or if he would suggest something else. So Mr. Garrison, we would then be in a world of 32 witnesses being divided. So just open for Mr. Garrison's input.
Thank you, Mr. Virani. My concern is the technological challenges, and having 4 witnesses per panel would leave less time for questioning and we all recognize that the majority of the testimony comes out during the questioning anyway. So I do advise all of you to take that into account as we propose to have bigger panels. The other alternative, well, I'm hoping that you can maybe provide any, but if all the parties can concede to what Mr. Garrison's point is, with respect to the number of witnesses for the Bloc and the NDP, I put that to you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Maloney.
My concern is if we're rigid on this witness allocation, we end up putting ourselves in a corner, because if we're down to the second last meeting, we're going to invite a whole bunch of witnesses, some of whom aren't going to be able to attend. And if we have, we can only have a panel of 2 witnesses because we haven't complied with some rigid schedule. It may end up being that based on witness availability, we end up with 8 and Mr. Garrison ends up with 4. I mean, I would suggest we leave that in your discretion, and with the focus being on making sure we have the right number of meetings and a full slate of witnesses.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Maloney. Then with that, what I will ask for each party to do is to submit for the Liberals and the Conservatives, please, your top 10 witnesses that you must or that you would really like to have appear. For the Bloc and the NDP, I would ask that the pair of you submit your top 3 witnesses. I'm sure that there will be a lot of overlap in which witnesses are proposed. So let's start from there, and then obviously we can revisit and readjust as witnesses are able to attend to testify or are not able to attend to testify. Do I have agreement on that from everybody?
Madam Chair,
yeah.
May I say? I thought Mr. Virani's suggestion was reasonable.
Me as well.
12, 12, 4, and 4. I think we should be submitting our top 12, 12, 4, and 4. That way we have more flexibility. I think we all are able to understand time commitments, but it does allow for more voices. We may ask less questions of each witness, but it allows for greater participation when you've got 4 times that number wanting to participate. And I think it responds to my colleague, Mr. Garrison's concerns as well.
Thank you for that, Madam Finlay. Monsieur Thériault, if you wanted to intervene here.
Yes. First of all, I'd like to say hello to all of my colleagues. I work with some of them on the Health Committee. I'm not sure where we're going with this. The Bloc can suggest more than 3 witnesses, but we will limit ourselves to 3 if that's the case. I heard that we had said 4 posed a problem because of the amount of time for questioning. We need to ask questions. We get them brief. We ask questions. Given that we get the briefs ahead of time, that enables us to have a good interaction with the witnesses, and that's what's going to be so important with these exchanges. But what I'm trying to get at is if we have some duplication, I imagine we'll ensure that we get other witnesses after. Let's say I have 8 witnesses that I want to suggest, or 10, if that's the choice of another party, well, I'll suggest others. What's important is that we have a good balance so that we hear from a broad range of people and that we have enough time to ask them questions and clarify their positions. That's all I wanted to say.
Merci. Mr. Garrison, I see your hand up next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we do go to 4 per panel, I realize it presents challenges, but I think it is important to hear more voices. And if we go to 4, the 12-12-4-4 is acceptable to me, and I think it's a good way of proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Garrison. Mr. Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this is a very, very important topic, as all of us on this committee know. I'm very much in favor of 12-12-4-4. As many brains we can get around the table, we need to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Virani?
So I would just propose, and perhaps we can achieve unanimous consent, that we move to have 12 Liberal witnesses, 12 Conservative witnesses, 4 Bloc witnesses, and 4 NDP witnesses, with unlimited written submissions from any of those people who are not able to attend, and that we provide those lists to you and the clerk, Madam Chair, so that we can get going with the scheduling.
Thank you, Mr. Virani. Mr. Kellaway?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Actually, Reeve beat me to the punch on that. I mean, I look at 12, 12, 4, and 4 as reasonable. And of course, the big caveat for me is I think we use the terminology unlimited submissions, written submissions as well. So I think that's a reasonable consensus given the gravity of the item at hand.
Thank you very much. I believe that we are in consensus at this time then. For 12-12-4-4 per party. So if I can please ask you to submit your top 12 or 4, depending on your party, for clarity. 12 for the Conservatives, 12 for the Liberals, 4 for the Bloc, and 4 for the NDP. To please submit that to the clerk and myself at your earliest. And I would say maybe by the end of day tomorrow, just so that we can get the invitations out over the next couple of weeks to the witnesses. I believe MOG, our Mr. Clerk, has a quick question for clarity for November 3rd. Mr. Clerk, if you just want to raise that, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted information about the November 3rd meeting, which is this coming Tuesday with the Minister Lametti, IDU, and Coalto. Is it the full 2 hours, or would it be like a super panel of 1 hour only, and then in the second hour you would have other witnesses from the civil society? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Now, given that it's 3 ministers within that time frame, I leave it to the committee to decide if you'd like to have a second panel or 2 panels. Mr. Lewis, I see that you would like both of them, all 3 ministers, to appear for the 2 panels.
Yes, please.
Is that the consensus around the table? Ms. Findlay?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper? Mr. Virani?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, obviously the committee will determine this, but I just posit that we've just heard from Minister Lametti. We haven't heard from Ministers Haidu or Qualtrough. Obviously, they'll be speaking on a bill as opposed to the general estimates. But I'm just conscious of the fact that we've got a number of witnesses to get through, and it will make, if 2 hours, effectively 2 meetings as opposed to 1 is used on the ministers, it will effectively have a knock-on impact on the rest of the scheduling, which may impede the ability of the witnesses to give us their full view. So just for something for us to deliberate upon, but obviously in the hands of the committee as to what people want to do.
So my understanding from the general gist of the committee is that you all want the 3 ministers to appear for the 2 hours, and I think that where the majority of you are okay with that, then that's what we'll do, unless there's any strong opposition to that.
Well, Madam Chair, I'm same school of thought as Mr. Barani. I mean, Mr. Lewis just made the point that we need to get as many brains around this table as possible so we can be educated. I think I know where the ministers stand. I don't know what I'm going to hear from all of our witnesses. So I think 1 hour with the 3 ministers, for the reasons Mr. Barani just pointed out, makes sense to me. Let's move forward this thing. We don't want to lose a meeting, and I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm not sure we have consensus around this table on that. Maybe we should take it to a vote.
With
Ms. Finlay?
Madam Chair, with respect, I'm pleased that my colleague, Mr. Maloney, knows where the 3 ministers stand, but I don't necessarily. That's the whole point of them coming. It's not very often we get the opportunity. There's the intersection of their responsibilities with an important bill. And I think it's very helpful to Canadians to understand where they are coming from and give us a chance to talk it out. And I'm confident that this wonderful group of colleagues I'm sitting with will be able to handle the timing and the questions with respect to the witnesses. We've just agreed on numbers. I think we'll handle this well. And it's an opportunity, I think, for all Canadians to hear from 3 ministers of the Crown on what they're hoping to achieve and how they hope to achieve it. So I would say the time is very well spent.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Finlay, for that. So I pose to the committee again, 3 ministers for 2 hours. Mr. Varani, is that your hand?
Yeah, I apologize. I should be raising the hand on the side, and I've just been doing it like this. I apologize. Just reiterating that the steering committee made a determination that there's 4 sessions in total of 2 hours each for hearing witnesses, and then 2 sessions of 2 days allocated for clause by clause. So if everyone's fully cognizant of working within those parameters and still wants to have the ministers appear for 2 hours as opposed to 1, then we're in the committee's hands as to what to do. But I just want everyone to fully understand what we're dealing with, because in the pre-COVID era, picking up an extra meeting, staying late is a lot easier to do. It's not easy to do in this environment. So it's just something to just be aware of. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Varani. Mr. Moore?
Well, when we see and this is the problem with limiting on such an important bill to only 4 meetings for witnesses, when we see the amount of interest that we have 99 people interested right out of the hop, and we saw how fast 2 hours goes with 1 minister. How fast would 1 hour go with 3 ministers? However, to Mr. Varani's point, doing that leaves us 3 more meetings of 2 sessions each. So that's 6 sessions times 4 witnesses. That's 24 spots, of which Conservatives have 12. That leaves only 12 left to split amongst the other 3 parties. So the numbers do not add up. If we're going to have 12, 12, 4, and 4, it would require moving to 5 witnesses per panel, and that's not fair to those witnesses. Probably wouldn't leave much time after opening remarks for question and answer. So somehow the math is not quite adding up.
Mr. Kellaway?
I'm usually in a weak zone when we start talking about math. I thought this was justice, not the. So, but I was
not
just
alone.
Carry the one. That's all I know. But I just wanted to comment on the 2 hours and the ministers in question. I think we can have transparency and efficiency. So if I look at the 2 hours and having the 3 ministers there, my comment was before we got heavily into math that I'm okay with, but I'll defer to others that have a more mathematical mind in terms of adding up the numbers here. But I just wanted to kind of make that comment around the 3 ministers at one time for 2 hours. It seems reasonable to me.
Thanks, Mr. Kellaway. Mr. Garrison?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm not sure it was Mr. Moore's intention, but he convinced me to change my mind. So I'd like to move that we hear the ministers for 1 hour and that we schedule a second panel for the second hour. And then if I can just say, I expect the chair to keep the ministers to short opening statements, and I think we'll do okay on that. But I don't want it to be at the expense of additional witnesses.
Are you moving that, Mr. Garrison?
I am moving that.
Okay. Would we be able to take that to a vote right now? Mr. Clerk?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Cooper?
In favor.
Ms. Finlay?
Agreed.
Alors, Monsieur Thériault?
Je suis contre.
Mr. Garrison?
In favor.
Mr. Kellaway? Mr. Kellaway?
Sorry, in favor.
Mr. Lewis?
Je vote pour.
Mr. Maloney?
In favor.
Mr. Moore?
Favor.
Mr. Sanga?
In favor.
Mr. Virani?
In favor.
Hey, Monsieur
Thank you.
En favor.
So I guess that makes yeas pour 11, 11, pardon, 10, 10, and nays 1.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I appreciate that. So my next and I guess my last question for you guys today, it is with respect to the time slot for the ministers. Obviously, we don't want to, given that we've now agreed to have only one panel with the 3 ministers, how much of a time? I was saying like 4 minutes per minister would be reasonable. Is that okay? I see nodding. Ms. Finlay, are you okay with that? Mr. Lewis? Monsieur Thériault? 4 minutes. Thank you. Okay, so we'll instruct accordingly. If I can please have everybody submit their prioritized witnesses at your earliest so that we can send the invitation. And I believe Mr. Clerk wants to make a quick intervention here. Please go ahead, Mr. Clerk.
Just to reinforce what you just said, Madam Chair, if it's possible to send me the party's priorities by the end of day today, that would be much appreciated because November 3rd is just around the corner. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Clerk. If there's no other committee business, then I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.